I'm down. Am I even down? I don't even know anymore. Does it even matter? Really? Does it matter? I'm 181, okay? I'm 180, 179. It really doesn't matter at this point. It's like, you think about, I don't know, 10 years ago when I was at 163. Like, thank God, at the very least, I gained 16 pounds of muscle in 10 years. At the very least, I did that. There were some people just talking about how difficult it is to go and put on muscle. And yeah, it's really difficult, and people don't really understand it. They think that they can eat a ton of food and then their lifts go up by 50 pounds. But what they really don't realize is that there's a lot of bloat strength that goes on. And I use that term in quotes because when it comes to bloat strength, really what that means is that you're filling out to your leverages. Back in the day, when I competed at powerlifting, I was a lot stronger in the 220 and 198 pound weight class, or 90 to 100 kilograms. I was able to squat 625 pounds, bench press 460 pounds.
Come on, Bernard! Come on, Bernard! Come on, Bernard! Come on!
And deadlift 550 pounds.
Down.
Now those numbers were about good enough to get me into the state level of competition, and being at my height at 6'0" means that, well, 220 wasn't really my right weight class. I probably should have been a little bit heavier, but oh my God, I definitely did not carry 250 pounds very well. On January 8th, when I started this fat loss, I was at a crossroads because I could have started to train to get a little bit stronger, maybe to get back to my powerlifting days. It wouldn't have taken me that long. It would have taken me maybe about 12 weeks of solid training in order to get back to something similar to what I was doing. But that wasn't really what I was looking for. And it also would have only taken me about 12 to 14 or 16 weeks to have lost a bunch of weight as well. Great, now I'm naked on camera. You like this? Yeah? So being at a crossroads was actually probably a good position to be in. And when people say that, oh, this guy's not going to last in his diet and he's not going to do it for the long term, I've been doing something similar for about 10 years, to the point now where it only took about 16 weeks to get back to a certain position. So not doing it long term? Yeah, no, you're wrong, okay?
April 4th, 2010. Meal 3, we have oatmeal, we have chicken.
Anyhow, just being at a lighter weight means that it's a little bit more difficult for you to lift heavier weights depending on how tall you are. If you're only 5'4", then 220 pound weight class is definitely plenty for you to become a very good and strong power lifter with heavy weights. There's people who I know who are 5'4" and 220 or 242, and they can squat 800-900 pounds. But on the flip side, the taller you are, the heavier that you're going to have to be. Mainly because the travel distance is longer, and also because your leverages are a little bit more difficult. Think about it, if you're 6 foot and you're 120 pounds, you're probably not going to be lifting that much. So why do you lose strength when you're on a cut? There's two very obvious reasons to begin with. The first is that if you're on a cut, you're probably doing a lot more cardio. And if you're doing a lot more cardio, that's greater work capacity on probably your legs. And when you have greater work capacity on your legs, it means that sometimes your lifts will suffer just a little bit. Might not suffer at all to begin with, but it's gonna suffer a lot more the further along you go. When you're doing 1.5 hours of cardio every single day, definitely it's going to affect some of your squats and your deadlift. Another more immediate reason is that you're not eating as much food as you were before. I'm trying to eat this apple before I have another meeting. I'm still at the hotel here in Chicago. Look at this swanky modern look. I'm so hungry. All I had was some powder. Sometimes you're not getting enough energy that you might be needing to supply to your muscles, and if that's going to be the case, well then later on in the diet, very deep down, maybe about 12-14 weeks in, then yes, you're going to start to lose strength. But But the less obvious reason is the loss of leverages, which people don't talk about very often. It's a misnomer that sometimes people might think that this particular physique might be stronger than this physique. And some people, especially kids and novices who have gone to the gym, they really don't know this. I remember a long time ago I wrote a post on Facebook talking about which one is stronger. And you know, at the time I was heavy and I was undergoing a lot of bullying from my own family. All of my family members were saying that I was definitely this guy. But beside the point, one guy is the world's greatest bodybuilder and the other one is the world's greatest Olympic lifter. One is not the other, but yet one is much stronger in one sense than the other. Can you guess which one? Now, the bodybuilder physique is not functional. It's not functional in the sense that you won't see a pro football player with that physique. Some gymnasts will have similar physiques, but they're not going to be quite as big. And I would suspect that maybe being that big would get in the way of being as flexible as you want to be when you want to be a gymnast. When it comes down to being a particular athlete, your body is going to adapt. And what you end up seeing is a physique that develops amongst people who are at the top level of that particular sport. And they're going to have a certain physique. And that's mainly because of the training and of course the requirements of that sport. Now when it comes to Olympic weightlifting and when it comes to powerlifting, those people who are at the top of their sport are definitely not going to look like powerlifters. In fact, they kind of look just like a regular fat guy. So I can only really speak to powerlifting on this because I don't really know Olympic weightlifting that well, but when it comes to powerlifting, you want to be thick. What I mean by that is that it gives you a greater cross-sectional area for you to apply the force of the weight to. Now when it comes to weight is very simple, and the reason that the weight is so heavy is because of gravity. And gravity, the force is always going to be going straight down. You learned this in your physics class. Now, if you want to apply a force to the weight in order to move it upwards, you'll have to apply a greater force than what the gravity gives it. You can't just apply the exact same force, because if you did, then the weight would stay the same. You have to apply a greater net force up than what comes down. So when it comes to applying force to that weight and to leverages of your body, the thicker that you are, the more surface area you're able to apply that force to, which then gives you a little bit more leeway in terms of getting the weight up. It becomes a little bit more easy strictly because the area is so much larger for you to apply that force to. Now with what I'm saying, this only applies for the two pushing lifts, so for the squat and also for the bench press. For the deadlift, it's a little bit different. In certain cases, if you're too thick in your midsection, it becomes very difficult to even bend down to touch the weight, needless to say, pick it up. And if that's the case, then it becomes very difficult for you to deadlift very well. And in fact, I experienced this when I was around 250. It made it very difficult for me to just even bend down to pick up the weight. So my deadlift actually decreased the thicker I got. But because for powerlifting, all you're doing is adding the squat, the bench press, and the deadlift together, if you can excel in 2 out of the 3 lifts, then you will net better than if you only excelled in 1 lift. So where am I now? I'm at a point now where I'm not very strong. I'm really not strong at all. Weights that were pretty easy for me at the start of this cut are now very difficult for me. The last time I lost all this weight 10 years ago, I said in the video that I made that I lost a lot of my strength for squatting especially. I squatted 500 pounds before the cut, and after the cut, I could barely squat 135. And people were very skeptical about this, but until you've lost some weight yourself, you're gonna realize that your leverages play a huge role, especially the taller you are. They're gonna play a gigantic role in how much you can lift. And of course, I was able to squat even more than 500 pounds after the cut, and that was when I started to regain some of the weight. What happens is that after a diet, you're going to rebound a little bit. You know that water weight that I lost, that 5 pounds I lost in the first week? Well, that's gonna come back. That's gonna come back pretty quickly. I don't foresee myself regaining all of the weight, mainly just out of a desire to not do it. And I don't typically go out to eat. I don't typically eat a lot of junk food. I just have my oatmeal, I have my protein shakes, I have my fruits. The less I eat, the better, because eating takes me forever. And the problem with me is I get sidetracked doing all these stupid things. Like, you know, it's like from one thing to another. Really, I want my mind back. And after the diet, who knows? I do want to get some of that strength back though, because I've lost quite a bit of it, and I've really just become a lot weaker than what I normally was. But it's okay, it's temporary, it's not a big deal. That's the problem with people who are younger, is that they think that once something drops, that they've just become a massive failure, especially when it's something on their own accord. A lot of people take their own problems very seriously, right? Now, the thing is, when things start to go down, when things start to get worse, when things just really aren't looking that good for them and their future is maybe a little bit cloudy, just like when I lost all of the fat the first time 10 years ago, I thought when I was losing strength, I thought that, oh my God, I'll never be able to compete in powerlifting again. I can't even squat 135. That was the worst part about it. It's like, I know girls that can squat 135, and I was an ex 500-pound squatter. What's gonna happen to me? You have to realize that it's temporary, that in terms of strength comes back very quickly. All right, we're almost done. We're almost done with the 16 weeks that I planned for myself. So thanks again for sticking around. See you next week. Adios.